very much for giving me this opportunity. Really, it's a pride privilege to be present before such an amazing personality in the form of Chief Justice, former of Sri Lanka, and my friend Sachin, and in front of such amazing personalities in the form of vice chancellors and professors, and also from medical profession. The topic of discussion that I thought would be very relevant today is how law schools can make a difference. Because after spending quite some time with the legal education, I thought that perhaps in all the conferences I would like to focus what should be the role that law schools and law students can actually do to address this particular problem. Now, the first slide that I would like to highlight is what exactly is discrimination, how this discrimination is happening, and really understand the problem. It's very difficult to really focus on how it can be addressed. Now, a very interesting case law, I think many of us are aware of this case. Hassan Martin was a very, very famous golf player. Now, the problem with him was that he had a little bit of problem in walking from one hole to the other. Well, apart from PGA, all other sporting communities agreed to that using of a cart. I don't know whether any of us here actually play golf. The judge in this particular case, in one of his observations, one of the four judges said that it's basically about a loss of a calorie which you can compensate with one big burger. So it's really not a very big thing. Now, there was a huge debate because this matter went to the highest court in America. And I personally don't want to go into what actually happened in that case, but I want to say that it is a man-made disability. Because it's not like football or basketball where you need athletic skills. It's just basically a sort of a billiard. If you compare that, it can be something like that. Because the bat is with you, the ball is static, and you can simply hit. Now, the second point that I'd like to highlight is another theory which is based on canonic principles. And I think most of the people who are aware of criminology and the theories of crime, there was a concept called quote unquote born criminals. That means even India had it, in the colonial era in the form of the Criminal Crimes Act, because they were not capable of addressing a set of people. Now, born criminals, people with certain sort of disabilities were treated to be criminals. Because they believe, like the earlier speaker said rightly, that perhaps this was an act done by his previous life or something, which definitely in the philosophy, the next point that I have identified as reiterative in many cases. Now, there are examples like banishing people from taking up dynasties because of their disabilities in the form, and I think we have seen that in Mahabharata, because of certain problems cannot take positions. So these are reiterated in almost everything. Secondly, how creating disability laws are affecting the concept of morality. Now, this relationship between morality and law has been discussed by many philosophers, including that of very recently Ronald Dworkin. And he's saying that if you talk about today, I don't think that there is any relationship between law and morality at all. Now, if we go into other theories like utilitarian theory, we find that minorities have always been ignored. The fifth theory that was propagated by Aristotle was also ignored because they should be given. Even today, modern legislations are saying that those people who are not exactly fit for other functioning and fit for something else, they should be given this opportunity to work for something else, not imposing and pushing that person to another limit which the person cannot run and achieve. And this applies to even able-bodied persons. Now, the next theory that I was thinking about was the realist theory. Now, law in law books are basically myths, and unless that is applied. Like, we have a set of conventions. India have definitely participated, they've even ratified very recently. And we have lots of laws, but yesterday our commissioner of the state said that we don't even know how many disabled people are there. So this is the staggering problem here. And that is the law in law books are nothing but myths. And coming down to discrimination in law, I was thinking of giving a big slide for this, but because of paucity of time I thought against it, because we people, when construct a house for public purpose, okay, we only think of the staircase, that's it. That's conventional. Even when, that's even what we do in our own house by constructing a house, because we are only thinking of an abled person, and that is why I think more than 40% of the population who are above 60, especially in the urban area, are having a lot of problem. They're selling off their houses because the mobility issues. They're now shifting into smaller flats because of the mobility issues. Now, those people who cannot do that, especially in the public places, will have to go and fight for their rights all the time. Why? This is one of the very interesting questions. What is discrimination? This is, if this is not discrimination, I don't think anything else can be. Now, discrimination in the law, international law, it's like, it's discriminatory in many perspectives, especially political perspective. Like, international law perhaps is more of politics than of law. And unless and until there is enough representation, it's very difficult to raise voice. And I don't even know how many people are there representing our country who are fighting for disabled rights. Because I was going through the third Universal Periodic Review a few days back. Well, UPR, for those people who have never heard it, is basically a report that all the countries need to submit every 4 years to the United Nations as to what extent their rights, the rights that they have signed or codified, have actually been reiterated. To my utter disgust, that perhaps only one line was written, that the central government and the state government are equally working hand in hand to move into a situation which is disabled friendly. Now, discrimination in lex fori, I just spoke about the law in USA with this case earlier. Now, I'll just take another example of a case at this particular juncture, because without that, I think this deliberation would not be complete. This guy was working with Delhi Transport Corporation. He was driving a car, like a bus. The bus had an accident. He lost his eye vision. And after the treatment, the Delhi Transport Corporation said that you are no longer fit, and under the legal legislations, we cannot retain you as a laborer because you are now disabled. Now, he goes to the court, he talks about disability rights. Now, here in India, we have a minimum of 40% to be considered for certain benefits under the Act. So the court, in this particular case, said that, if he's not 40%, then how can you say that he's disabled and throwing him out? So he's able. Give him some alternative work. So these are some of the judicial interpretations that we are seeing, which is helping some people who are working, deliberately and spending their entire life for disability rights. Especially I have a few advocates, friends in the Supreme Court who are dealing with these matters. Now, they say that one of the most interesting problems that they're having right now is that their clients are so frustrated. They are so frustrated because every time, if I want to have a glass of water, I have to ask for help. Why? For breathing now I need help. So what I need to keep on asking for it. How long will I be able to do that? So they are basically frustrated because the rights are there in books, but in practice they are not. I'll just take a minute more to finish things off. Law today in India, as we all know, that we have a hybrid system because we are following our colonial masters, the majority of the laws that's there in India. And we're also taking into consideration the laws that are ratified in furtherance of the specific adoption period. And in this hybrid process, I think, I don't know how long will we take really to move from this hybridization to actually providing a more based laws for the disabled. Not disabled, if you talk about the vulnerable community, the sections of the society, like women, children, everything, like health issues. So basically, we are still in that CLS movement, critical legal studies movement, and our vice chancellor were discussing, was talking about how this can be done. So I just talk about how law schools can do it. I have a very small and very simple way of creating awareness. Awareness is something which we all can only do, especially at this level, apart from helping legislators to frame up laws at a different level, however. So we can move on to schools if we are not making up this gathering here and we move on to our schools. I think we'll have a lot more impact, especially for young speakers who spoke here. It would be really great for the kids to really understand what things are. Now, that can be done at university level, at social level, it can be done at even professional level. I would even request the stakeholders here to put this recommendation before the commissioner so that they can have a little bit of a practical move out from these law schools and perhaps giving a couple of credit courses in every semester so that they can talk. They can even work hand in hand with the disabled, at the health center here in ASSAM. Now, I see the road ahead. We have to move into all dimensions. There are many radical moves that we have to take. We have to take some liberal moves as well. And at the end, we need to move into international collaboration if needed. And I think that's something that we can do, and that's something which can make a difference in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Can I